Welcome back to the ThriveIN Wabash County podcast. I am excited to be in the studio this evening. Always excited to share the studio with my two co-hosts. Both Adam Stakeman and Christine Floor are with us tonight. So welcome, guys. Thanks for being here. Excited.
Fun.
Yeah, excited to share the space this evening more so than usual, because if you were able to listen to our episode from February 17th, which is season 2, episode 7, it was a group episode. As you know, if you've listened to our podcast since we began, about once a month, our episode has all of us in the studio, sometimes with a guest, sometimes it's just the three of us. But that February 17th episode, episode 7, I was in what we called, or I didn't call, everyone else called the hot seat, where I sat for an hour and Adam and Christine fired questions at me. Tonight, I'm really excited because Adam Stakeman is in the hot seat.
And I'm nervous. This is the most nervous I think I've been of any of the podcast episodes that I've done.
You should be. Should be nervous. Adam also let us know that the armpit sweat that you may or may not see if you're watching YouTube is not because he's nervous for the episode, but because he just finished at the YMCA and is sweaty and stinky and does not have his shoes on either tonight.
He doesn't have his shoes on, so.
Yeah, so just wanted to let our listeners know what the experience is like, what the atmosphere is like tonight in the studio. And we're going to get into some of your physical fitness and all of that too at some point, Adam.
Adam is so unassuming. Like when we started to dive in, I'm sure you felt the same way. You're such an unassuming person, the way that you carry yourself, and it's actually a testament to your character. I mean, if I had some of these accolades, I feel like I might walk around a little bit more prideful than you do. Well, and I know we're going to get through it, but it was really, really interesting and rewarding and fun to dig into a little bit more of who you are.
I'm curious if you actually found the MySpace account that you were referring to in your episode.
Yeah.
MySpace
Gone.
No longer available.
Too bad.
In my research. But while I think you're right, Christine, Adam is most definitely extremely humble, right?
Yes.
And anybody that comes across him knows Adam as such, and I believe that that's true. But also, regardless of your research that you may have, again, if you're watching, Christine has a stack of papers. And as she was referring to Adam's history and the things that I'm sure there's a lot of accolades that's definitely the case. But if you listen to one of our latest episodes with Chris Weatherford,
Yes.
Christine also did a lot of preparation, as she typically does, had a long list of accolades, and there were very few of the details that seemed to be correct in Christine's research related to Chris Weatherford. So let's hope tonight.
Better?
Well,
I mean, it's always the goal.
Let's hope so.
It did make for a great episode, though.
Made for a great episode.
Man, I really did try to be prepared for Chris. And if you want to hear my embarrassment and failures, you can go and listen to that episode as well. That just dropped recently, too.
Yeah, and Adam, you definitely did with my hot seat episode, did a lot of research and really dug back to high school and found different things. And as you'd mentioned, MySpace wasn't around, but we also couldn't find any digital pictures that had been produced from your high school days. So that's probably lucky for you.
I wasn't the star quarterback, so.
Yeah, I tried to find
Just on the
this
swim
too.
team. Just on the swim team. Well, we're really excited to bring this episode to our listeners to truly, in all seriousness, get to know Adam a little bit.
That's right.
Right? People may know Adam in different capacities from maybe work, right? And so excited to get into your career journey and what's brought you to what you do today, right? Some of our listeners may not know what your day job is. So excited to dive into that and advice you may have around for young people, right? And their career journey, because you've had a journey of different things, which is popular today and different than it used to be, right? So excited to cover some of that. Excited to get into kind of your passion, which our loyal listeners know, outdoor adventure, right? And I know Christine has done some preparation for that portion of the episode, but also just you as a person, right? You've dedicated a lot of time and energy to this community. Could live anywhere, truly have been a lot of places around the world, could live anywhere, but choose to call Wabash home and have chosen to give a lot of your time to this community. So excited to dive into the roots of where that comes from too.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Let's start a little bit, just maybe, I feel like I always start episodes this way, but from the beginning, who Adam Stakeman is, where you're from, and your journey to get to Wabash.
Well, I grew up in Terre Haute, so it's about 3 hours from here on the Indiana-Illinois border. And I'm the oldest of 3, a younger brother and a younger sister, and went to high school there and even went to college there at Indiana State before moving to Indianapolis. My ex-wife and I met in college and moved to Indianapolis. and then and spent a few years there. But then when we decided we wanted to start a family, we moved to small town. That was something that was in kind of both of our hearts at the time. And so we ended up in Rowan, Indiana.
Town of?
Town of population size?
Yes.
Probably 350,
Yeah.
maybe 400. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Bob Ferguson uses 487.
Oh, okay.
But he may not be counting just town limits. Sycamores?
Yeah.
What'd you study at ISU?
I studied business, emphasis on finance and insurance and real estate. And when I graduated, I had a job lined up. I was a financial advisor, and it was something that had made an impact in my life as a youngster. I had an uncle that had introduced investing to me at kind of the right time in my life, and also probably a good time in the market. And so I was able to do some savings, as a middle school and high school student, and essentially helped me get through college debt-free. And that trajectory made a huge impact on my life.
Oh my goodness.
I want that,
There's
uncle.
so much there. Let's unpack
Yeah.
let's unpack that just for a minute.
Yeah.
So to your point, not graduating from college and having student debt that has impacts on just your trajectory for the rest of your adult life, right? So that's really exciting. But middle school. So talk to us a little bit about, obviously you have an uncle that's teaching you some things,
Right.
pouring into you at that point. But how does that come? How as a middle schooler did you come to that?
Well, I was frugal from a young age, and so had a savings account and would ride my bike to the local bank. And back then, you didn't have an app on your phone. You had like a little ledger book, and you went in, and you could deposit $6, and they would handwrite it on your ledger book, and then they had a matching card at the bank.
Yeah, back then no phones probably.
Oh, no.
Forget an app
Oh,
on the phone. There was probably no
no
phones,
phones.
period.
Yeah.
Had a bag phone or a.
Back
that
then.
that
was
was
before.
that was
Don't date yourself.
That was way prior to bag phones.
Yeah.
But I was working, cutting grass and
Yeah.
shoveling snow and just doing whatever. But I also didn't like to spend the money, and so I was putting it in the bank. And I don't know, for a young kid, I had accumulated a decent amount, and my uncle was pretty business savvy, and so he just sat me down and kind of gave me the 1s, 2s, 3s of mutual fund investing, and I started putting money in there, and it was in a good time in the market where it was going up, and that
You're able to pay for college next thing you know.
And I, again, like, you weren't going on your computer and looking at the stock page. You were pulling up the paper on Sunday morning and go to the back page of the business section, and you could find your stock trader on there and know what was going on. And for me, it was really exciting. So I carried that through college then too.
High school. Where'd you work in high school? What was your high school job?
Mostly at a car wash, but I also had some lawns that I would cut. And then I had some cars on the side that I would detail, just extra. And then ended up working at a bakery as well.
So frugal and hustling.
Oh, hustling all the time.
We share that in common. I worked at Jack's Donuts when I was in high school. Interesting. Okay. So college, you moved to Terre Haute, going to Indiana State. Luckily, your mutual funds, because you started investing as a middle schooler, paid off. What were you doing for work and for other expenses while you're in college?
Still the car wash and the bakery as well. And just, little side things here and there. I don't know. Enjoyed the college experience. I kind of did it backwards. I lived at home for the first couple of years because I was a local, where most freshmen and sophomore are moving onto campus. And then it was my senior year that I finally moved onto campus, and it was my favorite year ever. I didn't have a job my senior year because I wanted to kind of soak in the experience and spend time with friends. And yeah, it was super, super enjoyable. I don't know if I'd do it differently, but for those students that go off to college and are like, I really don't want to live in the dorms, there is really something special about that time where you're really immersed into the college lifestyle.
Absolutely. So right out of school, going to work in financial advising, so into that passion that your uncle instilled in you from middle school, right?
Super difficult time. September 11th happened right after I graduated in May, and then September 11th happens, and markets aren't stable. People are worried. It's had been decades since America had been attacked like that, and here I am, this baby-faced young kid, fresh out of college, and I'm asking people that to trust me with their money, their life inheritance, or their kids' college savings plans. And it was really, really hard. And living in a new community, don't know anybody in the Indianapolis area, and you're just what they term smiling and dialing. Pick up the phone, dial. You get told no 1,000 times. Maybe you get 2 answers that say yes, and then out of that, maybe you get one of those that closes. Extremely difficult, and I wasn't cut out for it. At that point in my life, I wasn't cut out for
Are
it.
you grateful for the experience of going through that?
Yeah, it was extremely difficult, but,
You do hard things.
fast forward 15, 20 years, and it made me respect that business. And then later on, when I got back into sales, it taught me a lot.
Okay, so you're in small town Rowan, a little different than downtown Indianapolis with a financial advisor role.
Yeah.
What are you doing in Rowan? What are you doing for work in Rowan?
So timing wise, it works out that my ex-wife and I, we decided we were going to start a family. And so she's pregnant and she's a school teacher down in Indianapolis at the time. And we had decided we're going to move closer to family. It's either going to be up towards Rowan, Wabash area where she was from, or possibly towards Terre Haute, which, where I grew up. And, we want family to be involved in our young family's life with kids and stuff. And a pizza shop in Rowan that we had previously looked at about a year earlier with her parents, it was still on the market. And so we make the decision that we're going to move to Wabash County. I'm going to run the pizza shop, and she's going to find a teaching job, which, at the time, not a problem. And so we made the move. And I don't know, haven't looked back. I love it here.
Name of the pizza shop?
It was called AJ's. A little funny story there. I, as a youngster, had tried to go as AJ for a lot of my life. My name's Adam Joseph, and it just...
Hey, we can make that happen. That could be day one of AJ's new naming.
I've been told my nickname's Stick, so I'm happy to start the trend for you. It's helpful, AJ.
Well, mine never stuck. But we opened this pizza shop, and AJ's was really for Adam and Jody's, which is my ex-wife's name. So that's what it was, really, AJ's. But everybody called me AJ. They didn't even know me, but they called me AJ. Because I worked there, and she was a school teacher and didn't spend as much time inside the building. So everybody just assumed I was AJ.
So for any listener that had the fortune of tasting AJ's pizza back then, no longer around, but please use the comment section or the reviews here to let me know just how AJ's pizza. Did you ever have AJ's?
I never had it as AJ's. Mm-mm.
And it's still there. It's not AJ's.
It's Bailey's, and I've had that.
Yep, Bailey's Pizza Parlor in Rowan.
Something tells me that pizza's better than your pizza. No offense. I think Bailey's got it going on out there.
She really does. That Bailey's tool is so talented. Yeah.
You have the face of knocking at my front door with a pizza and being the most trusting and so trusting. Just such a trusting pizza delivery
but
guy.
But not the dough spinner? You don't want him? Oh, no. Doesn't do it
probably
for you.
fine. Yeah, that's probably fine.
I didn't deliver pizza.
So for those of us that maybe enjoy food, talk to me about your crust. Crust is critical. Are we talking thin and crispy? Are we talking deep dish, little hand-tossed action? Which was your specialty?
What my preference was our thin and crispy.
Always.
But we did have a hand-tossed as well. But the thin and crispy, it was like cracker thin crust.
Yeah.
Let's go. Come on.
Yeah.
That's
really
my
good.
jam. All right, I take back what I said. You know what you're doing. Okay. Very good. So
Yeah.
AJ's.
AJ's done slinging his pies.
AJ's
What's next?
Yeah. Come on, keep us going here.
Well, so we go through a divorce, and Jody and her parents continued to run AJ's. And so, I kind of had to figure life out when I didn't expect to, but I had to kind of, reevaluate my priorities and kind of go back to those early days of just hustling. And you got to pay the bills. We had 2 kids at the time. You got to make something happen. And so I don't know, I did a little bit of construction on the side and eventually found myself at Charlie Creek Inn, and I just walked in. They had just opened up and just said, I have hospitality experience. I have sales experience. What can I do? And so I went to work at Charlie Creek Inn doing banquets and whatever else they needed.
Yeah.
But that's a critical time. So before you were familiar with this area, Alex, that was the time when Richard Ford was still living, and that was probably one of his last local legacy projects that he has instilled and left the community. So you then, walking in that day and then securing your position at Charlie Creek Inn, really allowed for you to garner a relationship with Mr. Ford during the days when a boutique hotel like that for most local, for
Still,
anywhere in
today.
the region. Yes.
Today, yeah.
And to know that you had the opportunity to share time and be a part of his legacy. That's pretty incredible.
It really is. And I've said it before, if there's any guest that I know of from Wabash County that I wish could be on this podcast, it would be Richard Ford. But Richard was the kind of guy that it wasn't, he would introduce you to people. He would have small dinners at his home, and he would specifically invite certain people, and he would sit you next to certain people that he felt needed to connect. And I was fortunate enough to be invited to one of those dinners, and met other people through the community. And it really, as I look back now, it really changed my opportunities in Wabash County, because even though I had been here for several years, I'd really been stuck inside of a pizza shop 6 days a week. And so I met my customers, but I didn't know the community. And being in that public role at that time of Charlie Creek Inn, where it was new and exciting and everybody was coming in, I met a lot of people.
Yeah. He knew how to entertain, didn't he?
He really did.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I really wish you could have met him, Alex. He would have
He
would have enjoyed you, and you really would have enjoyed him too.
Yep.
Special man.
Do you remember some of the folks that you met at some of those dinner parties that he sat you next to?
Oh yeah.
Still around today, still in your life today?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And some that were, I think of the Corsos, which I don't know.
John Corso and his brother.
And they did Hollywood sets.
Yeah,
That's right.
he did almost all the sets for the John Hughes films. So The Great Outdoors and a lot of John Candy movie. Yeah.
Yeah. And, not that meeting Corsos pushed me in one direction or another, but I mean, that's just the type of caliber of people that Richard, if he felt like there was a connection there, he would invite you to have dinner, and, whether it went somewhere or not. But.
And through him and your role, you also got to witness the power of community connectivity and relationship building, and what that potential could be for the future, but also a great reflection of the legacy that we continue to build upon. You got to be in those conversations with someone who shaped, I think, the way we still today choose to approach our work, whether that's professionally or personally, in our involvement in a community.
That's very true. The funny story, so I went in and I met the general manager of the Charlie Creek Inn at the time and the assistant manager, and did a quick interview on the spot. And they said, the final approval is going to have to come through Mr. Ford. Would you be open for an interview? And I said, absolutely. And they said, we'll be in touch. So they called me a few days later, come in at this time, Mr. Ford wants to meet. And so I show up, and it's not just Mr. Ford. He's having lunch with like 7 other people, and there's a seat at the table.
Yeah, for you.
For me.
What were you wearing? Do you remember?
I was wearing a suit.
Absolutely. That's great. What was everybody else wearing at the table? Similar, or were you the best dressed?
No, I was probably one of the better dressed.
Okay.
Average age was probably at that time 60 or better.
Yeah.
And I didn't know a single soul. Now,
And he had a sport coat on for sure.
For sure.
It was during the day.
Always a sport coat?
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But, that alone taught me something that, I was going in thinking I was having a traditional interview. Him and I are going to sit across from each other at a desk. He wanted to see, how was I in public, in a group of people, just having lunch. And so, it just made me start to think about things differently. Yeah, it's just a great opportunity.
Must have shined. Must have shined at the lunch.
Apparently.
Yeah. So how long did you work at Charlie Creek?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe 5 years.
I can't remember.
I don't even know if it was that long.
I would have came to this interview if I would have done my research knowing that answer, and I could have.
I would have tried and probably got it wrong.
Correct.
So we're both okay.
And so today, Adam, I mean, you're with this podcast and volunteer your time for this podcast. And Christine and I, obviously, a lot of our day jobs are around the community, right? And pouring into the community. And while we do these on the weekends or a lot of evenings, right, that we're taking away from other things, for you, this entire podcast and all of your commitment, we wouldn't be where we're at today with the ThriveIN podcast without your level of commitment to this and learning the technology, mastering it. And that's just your personality of when you're committed to something, you're committed to something. And our listeners will hear that through the rest of this podcast if they haven't already. But what is your day job? What are you doing today for work?
Well, okay, so I'll back up just a little bit. And it was through Charlie Creek Inn that I met Christine for the first time. As being part of the hospitality in Wabash, I was nominated to be on the Visit Wabash County board and was part of the team that actually hired Christine 14 and a half years ago or so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that gave me an opportunity to connect with the community, volunteer some of my time for really kind of the first time on a larger scale, and met Christine. Because I had 2 young kids, and in the hospitality industry, as everybody can imagine, it's a lot of late nights and weekends, and it did not work well with any kind of family life. And so I had to make a decision that I was going to step away from Charlie Creek Inn, and I was going to go down a different path. I didn't know what that was at the time, but I took a little bit of time off. I'd saved.
Shocker, he'd saved.
So from middle school, now you're an adult, owning a business in between, still frugal.
Still frugal. And so I had taken some time off, I don't know, maybe 9 months or so, that I had pretty much knew financially that I had to be very, very frugal, but I could take some time off. And on that board of Visit Wabash County was Gilman Reynolds. At the time, he was new to the community. And also working at Charlie Creek Inn, planning parties and things, I had met JM Reynolds. And so I step away from Charlie Creek, and I also have to step back from the Visit Wabash County board at that time. And about 9 months or 8 months into my first retirement, I get
At
a call.
age?
A little over 30, 31, 32.
Okay.
I joke when I say it was retirement.
I know.
But I get a call out of the blue from Dylan or Jim, and they want to go to lunch. And I really only had met Dylan a few times through Visit Wabash County, and Jim on a handful of occasions playing in their office Christmas party. And Jim took me to lunch, and we just had a conversation, and he offered me a position. And I really wasn't looking yet. I was really close to having to start looking, and I didn't even know what they did at Reynolds Oil, honestly. I thought they were a gas station downtown, but we met, we talked about it. He was looking for somebody to kind of grow their territory and sales. And so I went down, I met with some of their employees, asked questions, found out that they're just an amazing family-run organization that's 4th generation, I believe.
Wow.
And so I knew they were doing a lot of things right. And they had 3 employees at the time that between the 3 of them had about 100 years of experience at Reynolds Oil. And that's not common anymore.
No.
And they have to be doing something right. They've got to be hiring the right people. They've got to be treating their employees right. And so I took a leap of faith and joined the team. And that's been a little over 14 years now.
According to LinkedIn, 14 years and 3 months, if it's correct.
That's right.
Okay.
Congrats on your 14 years and 3 months.
Yeah.
Thanks, Christine. We appreciate that.
Yeah, you're
good.
welcome. I verified that as a fact.
And so day to day, Adam, for Reynolds Oil today, you help them grow and expand their territory, but what does your role look like today?
It's changed over times, and we really don't have titles at Reynolds, but ultimately I'm in sales. I try to grow our business, but at the same time, it's a lot of customer maintenance and management, and that's the part that I really, really enjoy. I also kind of help oversee a couple of employees, a couple of drivers that work specifically on some of the accounts that I work with. And then I order some product. It's a small family-run business. You wear a lot of hats.
Yeah. And how many people work at Reynolds roughly, plus or minus?
I'd say 15,
Wow.
16, something like that.
It is a remarkable company. Jim Reynolds and his dad and of course, first of all, it's a very community-focused, very generous company. But that is one of the things I have to reiterate is the way that they do care for their employees and the way they've supported you in some of your endeavors over the years and some of your goals over the years that you've had, just you personally and individually. But it is a remarkable family-owned company, and that just courses through the veins of the way that place operates.
Yeah.
It just really does.
Wow, that's wonderful. And today, Adam, I know in your role, you were extremely helpful when we were launching this podcast because you drive a lot of miles for work, right? And so you listen to a lot of different podcasts.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe as a transition point in your life, you've let's transition to your outdoor physical fitness, some of the things that people may not know about you. Those that are friends with you would, but you found another way other than driving for Reynolds to cover a lot of miles in your
On
lifetime.
4 wheels. He's covered a lot of miles still just outside of those 4 wheels.
Yeah, so it's outdoor recreation and exercise has been very impactful in my life. And it's come out at a couple different times in my life. One, when I ran my first 5K, I was 6 years old.
Time out. So you were investing in the stock market in middle school, which allowed you to pay for college. and you ran a 5K at 6.
So my dad was, a recreation jogger, like a lot of people back in the 80s, early 80s. Running was kind of, I would say, on one of the upswings. And then at the same time, I've got a younger brother and a younger sister. And as I look back, it was probably more about wanting to spend a little one-on-one time with my dad. And, I did enjoy it. And I was also doing something that most other kids weren't doing. And I've always found a little bit of interest in doing the things that not everybody else is doing. And so I ran a bit then. But when I get into school and it's a sport, I did not enjoy running. I didn't really run I think I may have ran 1 year in middle school. I didn't run in high school at all. But when it came to competition, I was not interested. Training every day, listening to a coach, I really enjoyed just the time with my dad. And so I had a lot of time where I did not run. I wrestled in high school, did some other sports, but it was just what my friends and I were doing. When I went through a divorce, and if it can affect a lot of people in a lot of different ways, but it was a really, really difficult time for me. And I was fortunate that I turned back towards exercise. And part of that was on my own, but part of it was some friends that I'd just met, and they kind of helped push me in that direction, away from going to bars or smoking or doing other things that, aren't healthy.
Vices that some people just tend to gravitate to for comfort. Yeah.
And I've been there, and I understand how easy that can be.
Sure.
But fortunately, I had a friend at the time, a new friend, that really kind of took my adventures to another level. His name's Charlie, and Charlie suggested that we do an Ironman together. And I was a young kid watching Ironman on TV back in the late 80s, early 90s, and those were athletes,
Yes. Yes.
That's not something that just everybody can go do.
And what's an Ironman for our listeners?
An Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a full marathon, 26.2 miles.
And an average.
All done at the same day.
And how long on average does that take someone to complete? What's an average time?
I want to say the cutoff time is like 16 or 17 hours, something like that. I'm not, don't put me, but typically I would say most people are trying to get under 12.
So 12 full hours around or less, but around that of straight moving your body.
2.4 miles in the water swimming.
Mm-hmm.
Then you said 112 miles biking.
Yep.
And then you have to run a full marathon, 26-mile marathon.
That's right.
Man, I'm getting worn out just talking about it.
Yeah.
Well,
no wonder you're. Now you can see why it is something you train for, and why the rest of the world thinks of those as like truly accomplished athletes physically.
Yeah. And I at first, I kind of laughed it off, like we're not doing this. Like this is dumb.
Yeah.
I had ran a half marathon a few years prior. And when I finished that, I thought that was the dumbest thing I've ever done. Like, why do people do this? It really hadn't really clicked with me
and
yet.
Why do you say it was a dumb?
Oh, it hurt.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just.
Got it. I didn't know if you were saying, that was easy. Why are we doing that?
No,
okay.
it hurt.
Got it.
It hurt bad. Yeah. And it was something that my dad and I had a couple years earlier, prior to my divorce, we had challenged each other. We did a short little triathlon, and we did the Indianapolis mini marathon. Mm-hmm. And then that was it. I didn't do anything for a couple of years until went through my divorce, and then Charlie said, "Hey, let's do an Ironman." Dumb, really dumb idea. But I had taken the opportunity to go down to Louisville, Kentucky, where they held a full Ironman distance race, and I went down there just as a spectator. And I remember seeing a swimmer come out of the water that didn't have any legs. He had swam the entire length of it with his arms. And then he was going to get out and get on a hand pedal bicycle. And then eventually he would get into a wheelchair and he would roll himself through. And I thought, I have no excuses here. If that guy can do it, anybody can do it. You just have to set your mind to it. You're going to make sacrifices. But yeah, let's do it. And so Charlie and I, we trained for basically a full year. I remember going out for my first bike ride, which is probably my first bike ride that I'd been on in several years. And I made it from Wabash just past LeGros and turned around and came back. And that's not that far.
Yeah, 12 miles.
Yeah. And I thought, I got a lot of work to do.
Got some training to do.
100 more bike miles after I swim, 2.5 miles. And
Yeah. And I wasn't a swimmer. Charlie had swam in college. And
Oh, excuse me. I believe that your fraternity participated in a swim event. We do have photographic proof of that. I did find in my digging. Yeah.
we'll use that in the short for the promo for this
Yes,
episode.
we will include the photo of
I can't wait.
college AJ.
That was not swimming. That was dancing in water, apparently.
Adam the Aquaman.
Even better. Even better. But yes, back to you. You weren't a formal swimmer.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was basically a full year of sacrifice and training and getting myself mentally and physically ready and prepared for an Ironman. And, it was good for me at the time because both my boys were young, but you go through as if you've been in that situation, there's times where your kids are with you and then there's times when they're not. And the times when they're not can be extremely lonely and you have to find a way to fill that time. And so training was that outlet for me. And it didn't make me feel guilty. It just made me realize that I was working towards something, that I was going to be a better dad and, a better coworker, a better employee by doing the hard things. And I don't think all of that, I didn't realize all of that at the time, but looking back, it definitely had a huge impact on me.
So first Ironman, you train for about a year. You show up, get all the way through. You complete it, knowing you. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
What was your time for your first Ironman? And Christine may have that answer in her stack of papers. I'm not going to challenge her. Do you remember what's your first time?
It was right around 12 hours.
Which of the three, swimming 2.4 miles, biking 112 miles, or running the marathon was the most difficult in the first one?
By far the marathon.
And is it in that order? Is every Ironman in that order?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. Because of it being last, it is by far
You're
the hardest. For me,
completely
it's the
exhausted,
hardest.
yeah. Wow. That's impressive. So you walk part of the marathon, I'm guessing? Like your legs have to be, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you finish in 12 hours, around 12 hours. Wow, your first one. Christine, in your research, how many Ironmans has Adam completed, do you think?
So for Ironmans for Adam, this is just Ironman. Ironman?
Yeah.
Sure.
Just Ironman. Ironman 7.3 Muncie, 2011 finisher. Ironman Louisville, 2011 finisher. Ironman Chattanooga, 2014 finisher. Ironman Louisville again, 2016 finisher. Ironman Florida, 2016 finisher. I'm not done. Ironman Mount Tremblant, 2018 finisher. That is just the Ironman races that I have seen, found. However, that's all the Ironman races, correct?
That's not. I did Coeur d'Alene.
I wondered. I knew there was another French one that you had done, and I couldn't find it.
Coeur d'Alene is in Idaho.
Oh, wait. What's the Canadian? Wait, wait. Did you do one in Canada?
Mont Tremblant.
Oh, well, keep going. Let's not draw attention to my lack of geographical knowledge. Please continue.
I did Ironman as a brand.
Yes.
Which most people assume is a distance, but it's really a brand. But that distance Ironman, I also did one in Vermont, and I also did one in Utah that were non-branded events that the James Lawrence Iron Cowboy put on. And then, we did the ones here in Wabash for Dam Man.
Oh, we're not to that one yet.
Hey,
This list is so
brown
long.
cow. Now,
slow
brown
down.
cow. Let's-
Altogether, 13 times I've towed the line for an Ironman distance event.
13 times. And so now all of our listeners know why when we were setting up this podcast, we were kind of picking what roles and guests we would have when we talked about, Adam's going to be outdoor and adventure and environment enthusiasm.
and mentally unstable.
That is remarkable,
And
Adam.
No doubt. Not to make jokes back.
That's
so
true.
2011 was the first one.
Yes, that's the first one.
And
that
your
I see.
latest was?
I don't remember.
When did they move? When did... 'cause you did-
Probably around 2021, somewhere in there.
So we are talking in a 9 to 10 year period.
Mm-hmm.
You completed 13 Ironman.
Yeah, and actually there was like a 3-year period in there where I didn't do any.
Yeah.
And then there was a period where I did like 3 or 4
Okay.
in a few month period.
Few
Man.
month period. I was going to tell you that.
For those that
these
can't see,
dates.
Adam's biceps as he's flexing are just busting from this do-good
Right?
shirt he's
Right.
got on here in the studio.
Just to add, and I don't want to embarrass you because not that that's not only impressive, but he also did Fuego y Agua, 100K in Nicaragua. I remember following your socials during that time, and I'll let you talk more to it. I can just remember like losing a toenail. I feel like your feet were in some rough
Okay,
shape.
time out.
I
So
may
we
have
had some
lost a few.
Spanish there. So to
I
help.
said that
But-
right?
yep. No, it was great. Your Spanish sounded good, but 100K, like running.
62 miles in on an island in Nicaragua, up and over 2 volcanoes 2 times each.
It was remarkable to follow. The scenery was beautiful. You were very vulnerable on the parts that were hard and the struggles. And I think that's the other neat piece of a lot of your training too. And as we mentioned, there's still more.
Yeah.
You never stopped showing you. It's easy to show the shiny after I've got the medal, I've got the finisher, but you were always really vulnerable at like, it's tough. I'm tired.
That
I'm
was hard.
training. I'm tired. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the toughest races that I did, and it's hard to even explain the terrain that we went. Oh, it was less running and more,
Hiking.
navigating through jungle,
Jungle.
wet jungle, 100 degrees. You going straight up a volcano. It was really, really intense, and probably the thing that I'm most proud about in that event. So it had a 36-hour cutoff maybe. And I mean, I finished with minutes to go, and I was the very last finisher. I have not done any of my events to try to place certain I don't want to be
complete it. You're going to finish it.
It's a challenge against myself and against my head that I want to get through this. And thanks to a good friend, Rich, who was down there and helped pace me through part of that, we got through it. If it wasn't for Rich, I would have quit halfway through. That was just stupid, hard race.
Yeah.
I mean, just you say lost toenails. I lost toenails, and also just completely because of the moisture and the sand and everything else that you're running through, and it's getting your shoes. Completely lost the bottoms of my feet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, cell service isn't always that great, too. So keeping track and so you're like anxiously watching his next upload, or it might be, or looking back at what he went through. It was beautiful. It looked hard. It looked hot. It looked wet. It looked scary. It looked dangerous at times.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Oh, but he still kept going.
Yeah.
That was in 2020. A little bit before that, you did the Indiana Trail 100-mile ultra marathon. That was in 2018. And that one also, and I think another beautiful thing that has come out of, and please share more, is the community that you've built around doing some of these extreme, what I would call extreme events.
Yeah, when you train for something like an Ironman, you know you're going to make sacrifices in your life. It could be time with friends. It could be the sweet treats that you like. You're going to have your body and your mind kind of all come in alignment, and a lot of those things just kind of fall out, and you don't even think about it anymore. But you're going to make sacrifices. And so after training for several years and doing several Ironman events on my own, I was kind of burnt out. To go out on a weekend and take a Saturday and go out and ride for 5 hours and go run for 2 hours, and then maintain your house and yard and do all the other things. It gets kind of lonely. Mm-hmm. And around here, there just aren't a lot of other people that are doing that for fun, and that's okay. And so about the time that I got ready to kind of step away from the sport, I had a couple guys that I did not know at the time, Parker Beecham and Rich Church. They reached out to me, and I think Rich was fairly new to the community, and him and Parker said, "Hey, we have this idea. We want to do an Ironman. We know you've done a couple. Can we pick your brain?" And so we just met one night and had, dinner or drinks or something. And I told them what I could tell them. And, part of it is that learning on your own and experiencing it. for me, that was what was impactful. So, just go out there and try it. If it's something you're going to do it. And so they continued to ask me questions, and they would invite me out for runs or bike rides. And I got to know those guys. And then our group grew from those couple to really 6, 7, 8 guys. And it became my social circle, and also, an outlet for exercise and stress, and to be able to share frustrations of life and have that core group of guys that you truly trust and can suffer together. You start to appreciate when another guy can go out there and suffer for a 30-mile run. You appreciate what they're doing, and there's a bond and a trust that happens there.
And those guys were your pacers for that 100-mile. I'll share my little story about the time that there's a few times I was able to support Adam at one of his events, but I'm not an ultra athlete. I know you're shocked. And Adam was doing this 100-mile run in Chain of Lakes. And there was a group of us, and we were like, we're going to go. We're going to go cheer him on. I was so excited. And I don't know how ultra events necessarily work other than my exposure to helping organize the Dam to Dam, which is more leisurely and, has the rest stops throughout where people rest at the Dam to Dam and take breaks and hang out. So we make our way up to cheer Adam on. And I think there was a way to share where your location was during the event. And so someone's like, he's coming. And, it's in this park, and we're clapping at him,
and we're running on trails through the
Yes.
woods. So it's not like we're just out on the roads and people can see us all the time.
Yeah. And this one you didn't have a pacer with, right? This one you were on your own, or did you have a pacer every 20 miles for this one?
I had a pacer from mile 60 on, maybe.
There was, maybe I've come to two of your things, but this one particular, I don't remember if you had I feel like you did, because your pacer came in with you, and I was going to sit down and talk. He didn't have time to talk. He literally came back to his base, ate 3 Pringle chips, I swear, while they stretched his muscles out, and then he was gone again. I was like, you didn't even take a break. Like, he didn't have this moment.
The OG Pringles, or what flavor?
I'll know.
I know those are really important details. 60 miles into a 100-mile run.
Yeah. I was like,
She thought we were just going to have.
I thought we had like 20 minutes to visit. He was like, I got to go. I was like, you're leaving? Yep.
Yeah.
With these 3 Pringles. I'm out. Bye.
Got what he came for.
But it was neat to see the village that you had around you. You can't do some of these things alone. And I had a picture. I'd have to go back and find it, and I'm sure I could share it. You're eating said Pringles, I think, but you're on a picnic table in this park, and your team is around you, and they're making sure your legs don't get cramped. I mean, just the amount of care that your friend crew became for you on some of these, it was real. That part was really neat to see, and his accomplishment, they felt so much pride, joy to see you working towards something.
Yeah, and we've all reciprocated that, in that we've poured into other people. And my friend Clint he's around 100-mile, and I poured into him as much during his 100-mile as I was pouring into myself during my 100. You want to see him accomplish it so badly. You know what can come out of the other side. And so, yeah, it was a great time for all of us. And we think we all had young kids, and it was super impactful.
And your family started to grow together even more so. I know with that pack of friends, you also had a Grand Canyon adventure that most don't experience, or that I've ever had heard this was an opportunity for people to choose to go and do.
Yeah, 3 of us flew out to the Grand Canyon and did a 1-day 50 miles from the south rim. We ran down into the canyon, across the Colorado River, up to the north rim, and then turned around and came right back. So did that in, I don't know, what was maybe 20 hours, 22 hours. I don't know what it was. But we went in, I believe it was February. And so that's winter in the Grand Canyon. And a lot of people don't realize how cold it can get. We were in hip-deep snow on the north rim of the Grand Canyon. And amazing experience. Beauty.
And you prepare differently for each of these types of events. You have also something, and you've done the Indianapolis mini marathon several times. Have you done the Monumental as well?
I have not done the
Okay.
monument.
I didn't have that in my notes. I didn't think so. The Mighty Mississinawa Triathlon.
Yep.
And then a special heartfelt story for Adam. In 2016, I'd been training for my first half marathon at the Indy Mini and was kind of asking Adam and all these other people about how do I train and do these things. And that May, before the event, my mom suddenly passed away. And I was unable to go and run that race. But I had been training and working toward that goal of doing it. And all of a sudden, you talk about community. I had a group of friends that organized the first and only ever Sea Flow mini marathon. And that was on June 12th, 2016. And Adam had he'd worked with Abby Traver, a wonderful friend of both of ours and of this community. And Adam had designed a course that when I finished, if you looked at Map My Run, spelled out Sea Flow 13.1. So thoughtful, so kind, and again, a reflection of the heart and the care that Adam has for people and his community. And so I've thanked you before, but I will always tell you that that date and that day will remain forever impactful in my heart.
Yeah, that was a special day for a lot of people.
That was a fun day, special and fun. Yeah, they put a lot of that conversation for another time, but we're not done.
That's incredible.
He also has ridden in Dam to Dam. I don't even know how many times, how many. I mean, you were part of even before Visit Wabash County became involved. So year 3?
I think I was there for the second year. I think the only one I missed was the first year.
So yeah, year 2, when it was still just locally, it was like 15 people that second year. And he also has done these races, and there's several other, but he's done these races that's called a 4x4.
Yeah, not really a race, more of a
endurance, right?
A personal challenge. So it's called a 4x4 by 48. And so you're going to run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. And so you end up doing 48 miles over that time. And I say run 4 miles, but you can really go out and walk 4 miles. And for a normal person, you're going to be able to do it in a little over an hour. So the challenge isn't so much about the mileage. It's about getting out and doing something uncomfortable every 4 hours. And that's
48 hours.
For 48 hours. And so that's, depending on when you start, that may mean an alarm at midnight and then another alarm at 4 a.m. and then another alarm at 8 and you just go and go and go and go. And I've done that a few times, 2 or 3 times. And usually it's when the weather's not the nicest. It's usually about this time of year. So you could have snow, rain. I don't think there's been a year that I've done it where we didn't get rained on at some point. And I'm glad you brought that up because 4 years ago right now, Neil Beaver and I, we did 4x4 by 48. And in doing so, we were challenged to raise some money for local communities. And I mean, if I would have thought we would have raised $500 or something, I would have thought you were nuts. But we ended up raising over $12,500 for local organizations. From Babe was one of them, Hope, 85 Hope, the LeGros Canal Foundation. So yeah, we were able to just a generosity of other people. But yeah, it's fun.
And it was just you and Neil, and you did the 4x.
He did his separate, and I did mine separate, and then I included some friends, some of my ultra guys got involved in it, and we would promote where we were going to be at 4 o'clock in the morning or wherever, and people would show up and they would run 4 miles with us, and then we'd go home and sleep for a couple hours, come out and do it again.
Now, what was the race that you and Ty did in that weird grass field? And it was like the score, the lead, not even the leaderboard, the attendance board was written on an old piece of cardboard. That was different.
That's called the Backyard Ultra.
That was it, yeah.
And Backyard Ultra is every hour you're going to restart the race. And the course is 4.167 miles. And the reason is that every hour the race restarts and you have to be at the start line and they say go and you go and you start the race. And in the next hour you have to be at the start line or else you're out. And you can either decide not to start another lap, you can not finish in time, or you can bail before you finish a lap. And ultimately there's going to be one person that finishes the race and then everybody else didn't finish.
It's like the last man standing
Basically,
or
a
woman.
last man or last woman standing.
So hold on.
And if you do 4.167 miles every hour on the hour over the course of 24 hours, that's 100 miles.
Yeah. Yeah. It's last.
Did you win?
It's last person standing.
I did not win.
Did Ty win?
He made it. I think his goal was to just make it to the 100.
Ty did 100, and I've done it twice, and I went to 75 miles both times.
Wait. So there's people that go beyond the 100 to be the last man standing.
Yeah.
The record is nearly 500 miles. Like 5 days.
You keep going till there's no one left to keep going till you're the last person that lines up at that hour.
It's a different level of crazy.
And they're all self-supported. I know that's not true. The organizers did provide dinner, correct, in that barn?
They had some food, but you're pretty much self-supported.
Yeah.
You had in some of the bigger races, you're allowed one person to like assist you.
Yeah.
But they don't run out. They can't run on the course. They can only.
You got to get back to the start.
Yeah.
They were camping tents. Wind. It was so windy.
Yeah.
Haley and I drove out to go see them, and it was windy. I think Beckett was there for a while. Did Owen or Isaac, one of your boys, came out and helped?
Both of my boys have been at different times. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's more.
And you'd mentioned, okay. Go
No,
ahead.
no, please, no.
I was just going to say, you mentioned all this litany of things, making you a better dad, a better professional.
Yeah.
I mean, all these different things, right? And so your boys getting to grow up watching you train for these things had a hard time in their life too. And I know they were younger, but I mean, that's not easy. It was an adjustment no matter what, right? And so to get to see you, whether it was your very first Ironman or they're out in the wind blowing cold,
That's right.
giving you a Gatorade or whatever it is you drink
That's
or
right.
eat when you do crazy things like you do. I mean, that's really to see and we'll get to that in a second maybe,
Yeah.
but to see them watch you do hard things consistently to now your kids today and where they're headed and the path that they're on is no doubt not a coincidence.
Yeah. And it's, when our vacations were different, some of that was I had a need to continue to train even though we were on vacation. But I also wanted to expose them to different things that they weren't seeing elsewhere. And so a lot of our times were spent at national parks. And at a young age, we were going out and I'm trusting that they can do 15 or 20 mile hikes in a day and knowing they can, but also knowing that whatever those limits are that they think they have, that they're going to push through. And the next time that they need to go 20 miles, or if dad says, hey, we're going to do this hike, but this one's 24 miles, that they're going to do it. Like there's these little steps that how you grow from that. And when I talked about earlier about how I would become a better dad or a better employee, coworker, it's when you put yourself in these uncomfortable situations intentionally, you grow from it. And then the next time that you're in an uncomfortable situation, a stressful situation that you don't have the control over, and you have the confidence that you're going to work through it. If you have stage fright and you don't want to go on stage, the more times you do it when you have control of the situation, the better it's going to be when you don't have control of the situation. And that's the same thing that I was doing with my running and cycling and Ironman type stuff. You train and train and train, uncomfortable. And then when it comes time to do an event, that's the fun time. You're actually just, celebrating all the work that you've put in.
And they've
about the
watched you.
process.
Yeah, and they've been a part of the process at times. And it's easy to see that translate to the way both of your boys do enjoy being outside. I mean, Owen most certainly does. And then just to watch Isaac's, he's out exploring. I know he is an active skateboarder. I know that you've taken him on some skating trips, but, you can just see that resonates still within them, that connection to being with the outside and outdoors, the nature.
And for our listeners that have missed maybe some of our earlier episodes talking about Owen is on foot walking across the United States, correct?
Currently in California.
He's almost to the edge. Well, I mean, almost is relative, but considering you originally started in Rowan, Indiana, that's pretty close to the ocean.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
he's learned how to do hard things
He's definitely has.
and challenging things and that journey and all the stories he'll have to tell that maybe against his will, but we will find a way to get him to tell that on the podcast at some point, share some of those stories. And then Isaac, talk a little bit about Isaac and graduating high school soon, and what's next for him?
Yeah, he's a senior at Northfield and has had the fortune to join Christine's team at Visit Wabash County for the last couple months now, I
Yeah.
guess, for an internship, and really has enjoyed his time there and is learning so much, learning how to work with a team, and they've given him a lot of opportunities to showcase some of his work, including a recent billboard. So
He's earned the right though to have the privileges to take the risk and do to some of those large scale projects. So commend you and Jody for the children you've raised. Isaac is an incredible young man, and I know Owen is too.
yeah.
Both willing to do things that
Hard
make them
things.
uncomfortable and hard things, right?
Could you imagine sitting in our office all day long?
No.
He does. He brings such joy. You talk about these big events and the things, you've also been, and your list is really long. I mean, you helped concept the Dam Man, which was harder. It's harder than an Ironman and longer distances. But we did that in Wabash County. And there was a handful of local ultra athletes that did that. We did that one year. I remember the end of the promo video, Rich Church, we got him on camera saying, man, that was harder than an Ironman.
We did it officially. We did it 1 year, but
Yeah.
we
You guys had done
we
it
had
on
done
your
it
own.
a couple years. Yeah.
Yeah. You are great at inspiring things to take place, hard things like working to build something like an ultra, like Dam Man. But you were also the catalyst behind Liking for Biking, which is a free community program that is offered pretty much May through September in Wabash County for families and all health and wellness and cycling levels to participate every Saturday. And you had this idea. Do you remember how we started that conversation and then how it grew?
Yeah, I mean, the way I remember it is that we were looking at our ridership that came to Wabash County, which was as a goal, right? We want the tourism to come to Wabash to join Dam to Dam. But when we looked at where people were coming from, there weren't as many coming from Wabash. And why is that? And so, we know that there's added benefit. Maybe it's not tourism dollars but it's a health initiative and getting people to believe in the community and their own health and their, like I had grown and started to believe that I could do more than what I initially thought. I wanted other people to experience that too. And so through Liking for Biking, we had people showing up those first few months and years where they hadn't been on their bike in decades. And all of a sudden, I mean, they're riding to LaGrow and back. And then the next time they're like, well, I'm going to go a little bit further. And now some of those people are out there riding 50, 100 miles. And it's really cool to see.
I remember you sharing a story about a grandmother and a grandson that would come over, and they were in a different time in their life, right? It was a grandmother, and her grandson was just getting kind of into it. And I remember how energized you were to see them have health goals, but also accomplishing it together. So, and then I believe you at one time were a volunteer fireman. Did you know this?
I was a volunteer fireman at Rowan for a short amount of time while I lived out there.
So you were showing up to people's doors for one of two reasons. Their house was on fire or they had a hot pie that they'd ordered from AJ's.
Hot pie.
Serious note, Adam, here as we're wrapping up. Of all of the long list of physical activities, thinking through both the training and then the day of the event, which has been the most physically challenging and mentally challenging, if they're two different events or if it's the same one, but physically and mentally challenging thing you've done?
Physically, I would say there's two that come to mind. One was an Ironman distance event in Utah, where I was essentially self-supported during the event, and it was at the tail end. I had done several Ironmans in a short amount of time. In fact, I'd done the one in Mont Blanc, Canada, just the weekend before. So I finished an Ironman in Canada. I drove back home. I worked for like 3 days, and then I flew to Utah to do another event. And mountainous terrain. It was at a ski resort out there. So cycling is not something that we can train for around here. And so that was extremely, extremely difficult. I was already tired and just not recovered from the previous event. And then that event brought me to tears. I mean, absolutely just, I thought,
Moose tears.
oh, yeah, it was really, really tough. But then the other one was the one in Nicaragua, the 100K down in Nicaragua.
With no skin on the bottom of your feet.
Yeah. And that...
Yeah, that'd probably do that too. Yeah, that'd be challenging.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing all that. We appreciate that. Adam, is you're thinking about life lessons. So we've been able to cover your career journey, and there's a lot there. I think we've covered some of the decisions you made at a really young age, whether it was for your career or financially, and lessons that have paid off. Obviously, a lot of physically and mentally really difficult to some people. They've listened to this episode so far and thought, like, holy cow, I have no idea where to even, that could never be me. I have no idea how to even start. Right. And so just thinking through all of these, your life journey, the difficult things you've done, what are some of the advice that you would have for people at different stages of their life, right? You know, who listen to this podcast, being one of those co-hosts.
Well, I mean, I go back just over 20 years ago, 2004, when my dad and I first challenged each other to run a half marathon and to do a sprint triathlon. And a sprint is a short triathlon. I didn't know how to swim. I'd never run that kind of distance before. And I mean, we were both starting from scratch, and we just had to start. So I was living in Indianapolis at the time, and he was in Terre Haute. So we weren't doing this together physically, but we were doing it emotionally. We were doing it together, and we could lean on each other, and we knew the other person was going to show up at the start line, and we better show up too, and we better be prepared. And so a lot can happen in a short amount of time is if you just show up consistently. There's this idea that, to become an expert in something or to become in top 1% of the field in something, it takes 10,000 hours. And when you look at that, that's like 5 years worth of nearly full-time work. In some trades, like if you want to be a rocket scientist, that might be a little bit different. But if you want to complete something like a marathon, which really a few percentage of the population of the world does, or if you want to go a little bit further, you want to do an Ironman, think about the last 5 years of your life and what you've done and how much in whatever area you've poured yourself into, how much you've grown. And for me, that was doing endurance events. And I never would have thought when I trained for that first sprint try or that first half marathon where I would be 20 years later, let alone like even 5 years down the road that I'd be doing my first Ironman race. So it's going to take sacrifice no matter what it is that you want to do. If it's your professional career, you want to really excel, you're going to have to sacrifice something. If it's some endurance event or, if you want to travel all the time, you're going to have to make sacrifices somewhere else in your life. So whatever it is, just know that that's what it is and have your reasons why you're doing this and following your gut. And if you just show up every single day in some form, you'll get better.
By osmosis, nothing else. And then looking back now, maybe a couple knee replacements in the process, but
No, I have not had knee replacements.
Or what'd you have? Meniscus?
I had a torn meniscus. Yeah,
that's all. Yeah, double meniscus tears. But hey, all of the things that it's done in your life and shifted how you think about life and how you are around other people, better for your kids, better in your career. I mean, worth it as you look back. Every minute
of it. Yep.
You use the words keep showing up. I think that is, in summation, not only are you so unassuming, you're just so humble, you're someone who keeps showing up, volunteering for the Wabash River Defenders, volunteering to pick up litter, volunteering to help somebody move hay into their hay loft, volunteering to help clear out this closet to make it our studio. Keep showing up, and that just echoes through the way that you lead, the way that you love, the way that you parent, the way that you are in sales, and we're all better because you choose to work on making yourself better. Like the way that you pour out to be better impacts and it ripples out. And so I appreciate the sentiment of just keep showing up because that's exactly what you do.
Yeah, you are what is best about is being the newest to this community. Can't think of a better example about what makes rural communities, small town USA, Wabash County a better place. The story that Christine, you shared in this episode about you go through something incredibly challenging in your personal life. You've been working towards something with Adam's help and kind of motivation and advice. And he plans on a random day in Wabash, pulls a bunch of your support system together and plans a mini marathon that you'd been working towards and couldn't go. And then he does it to spell out the trail and the path spells out.
Yeah.
Seaflow.
You're right. 13.
Thanks. I mean, for sharing
Right.
that, and that is who you are, right, as a
showing
human. So keep showing up, and that's what makes you special and different. And man, we spent a lot of time in season 2, episode 7, talking about a Division III football player. And here you are. If somebody's listened to all of this that you've done, Adam, seriously, thanks for sharing everything. And man, our listeners know Adam Stakeman a little bit better after tonight and getting to hear that story and walk away inspired, no doubt about it.
And that's, I don't want somebody to feel overwhelmed or like that they can't do a big thing. Show up and sign up for a 5K. Get out of your comfort zone. If it's, Run the River that's coming up in June and you've never done a 5K, it's not too late right now to start training or to lean on a friend and say, you know what, let's start going to the Y, or let's just start walking every day after work. Just start to show up and it'll become easier, and who knows where you'll be in 5 years.
Yeah, you couldn't swim.
I couldn't swim.
13
I forget how long
Ironmans
this was.
and
my,
10 years.
my first time ever showing up at a pool, I was still living down in Indianapolis. I went to Fisher's, and there was a swim club, and I went, and I I didn't know how to swim. I did not know how to swim, and I thought that these guys were clear and understanding that I didn't know how to swim. They just thought like I needed some tweaks to my swim, and I swam from one end of the pool to the other, and I was so embarrassed. I got out and I went home. And I never said hi to anybody else. Like, I was gone. I was like, I'm going to have to figure this out on my own. And that was hard. That was really, really hard. And so, I don't know, just show up and
Swim to the side of the pool.
Get out and start all over if you have to. Figure it out. You can overcome.
Can't overcome.
This podcast is made possible by the generous support from the Lisa Gilman Investment Fund, the Sandra Kunkel Trust, Mark and Amy Ford, Paperworks Industries, the City of Wabash, and the Community Foundation of Wabash County. And of course, the glue for everything, the Visit Wabash County team and organization. And Adam, thank you for your leadership of the Visit Wabash County through your years of service on the board, and also leaning in when Christine leans in always to different things. And when Christine and I came to you about this, you've been incredibly supportive and just the driver of so much of the ThriveIN podcast. And so we couldn't do it without you, but really excited for our listeners to get to hear more about you personally and your story. So thanks so much for sharing some of that tonight.
Thanks for putting me in the hot seat and taking it easy on me.
Until next time, this is the ThriveIN Wabash County podcast. I'm Alex Downard.
I'm Adam Stakeman.
And I'm Christine Floor.
Keep on thriving.